Hello and welcome back to When Sunday Comes, a podcast that aims to get into the heart of women's football and hosted by myself, Graham Falk. Today's guest does take us back to the WSL for the first time in a few weeks, and we will have a slight stop off in America. But welcome to the show, Leicester City's Jemma Purfield. Jemma, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Good, not a problem. I'm pleased you eventually got here because unbeknown to the listeners, I was having technical issues for not the first time in my life, but you persevered and waited for me. So first and foremost, thanks for your patience and waiting for me to actually fix my Zoom account. Thank you.
Not a problem.
I always start and end with the same question. It's mid-afternoon on the 4th of January. How's your morning been, your afternoon been? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been good. We've been in training this morning, so we had a team meeting to start with. We're playing a friendly tomorrow, so we ran through what we wanted out of that and then went out on the pitch and did a classic matchday -1 session with small-sided set pieces, all that good stuff. So yeah, good morning so far.
How was your break? All right. Yeah, afternoon. Yeah. How was the break? All right.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was nice to have a little bit of time off just to refresh, really. But yeah, really good and good to be back now.
Yeah, absolutely. The more these podcasts I'm doing, by the way, we will get to the football, I promise. But I've noticed more and more WSL players in specific have an obsession with coffee, which I have no problems with whatsoever. Firstly, are you a coffee person? And second of all, how do you have your coffee if you are?
I am a coffee person and I'm quite basic. I am a skinny latte. That's it.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely
often with one shot of coffee because I don't like it too strong. So I am a coffee drinker, but a bit of a weak one.
That's where we differ. I'm always a double shot and about 7 per day, but that's another podcast for another day, I think. Onto the football career, obviously we're never going to, as I always say, we're never going to get through an entire career in half an hour. It's just not going to happen, but we'll do the best that we can and we'll start with the current stuff. By my calculations, you've been at Leicester City approximately 18 months. Obviously, a club that's won a lot of praise for stuff off the field and the way they do stuff, but how much have you enjoyed your time at the club? Yeah,
obviously it's been difficult at times, but I think the setup, the facilities, the team we've got, the personalities we've got around the place has definitely made it enjoyable. And I think the club's got a very bright future. So it's somewhere that I'm happy to be. And I've enjoyed developing and enjoying utilising everything that we get given here.
I think you talked about Leicester there before. I think not on this podcast specifically, but I've spoke to Shannon O'Brien and Sophie Howard numerous times, and the setup at Leicester does seem great. Obviously, the fact that you play, the games at King Power Stadium, just little things like that, and going back sort of years in the past, like 2-3 years ago, you could see things were changing at Leicester for the good. How great are things behind the scenes? Because it does seem a club that future-wise is going to be in a fantastic shape.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Like you said, it is going to be in a fantastic shape come the next however many years. I think every year is just another building block and a step in the right direction. We have, 3 grass training pitches that are all ours. We've got 3G indoor facilities up at the top. So like even last week when it was -7 or the week before, whenever it was -7, there's no issues for us on training. There's no issues for us on pitches. We've got our own gym facility. We've got our own ice bath, hot bath, canteen, chefs, you name it, we've got it. So I think it's a really exciting club to be a part of in that aspect. And I think as a professional footballer, it's what you always dreamed of, having all the facilities to be able to excel and be the best player that you can be. And obviously aided with the staff that we've got as well. So it is an exciting place to be. And I think the future is bright.
Yeah, absolutely. On the field, look, not getting away from it, it's been a difficult season so far, but how have the first few months been for you personally on a personal level?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've got to keep pushing on. And I think personally, we've played some good football. I've enjoyed playing in quite a lot of the games we've played in because we've been playing good football and playing well, creating chances. I've been able to get forward, play a bit more attacking minded, which is what I like. So I think, on a personal level, I think it's not been a bad start and I've been really enjoying it. And as a team, I think the same. It's just now putting that last piece of the puzzle together, and I think we're going to do that coming the start of this year.
Absolutely. And, looking back almost a year ago, this was the time when Leicester put a really good run of results together and bounced further up the table and gave themselves a second season, which you're currently enjoying in there. the WSL. Going back to that period, can you draw on those experiences that you had in the second part of last season to kind of maybe ensure that this second half of the season is equally as good or equally as impressive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're obviously in a tough situation right now, but it's not somewhere that we're unfamiliar with or haven't been before. So we're ready. We're ready to bounce back. We've got a transfer window now. So we'll have some additions in. It's integrating everyone as quickly as possible and making sure that we're in the best place moving forward. But I 100% believe we'll do that. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the next part of the season. Training's been good. The intensity's been good. I think everyone's feeling refreshed after a little bit of time off. And I think we're going to be full steam ahead going forward, and I think we'll be okay.
You touched on the transfer window there, taking out Leicester out of the equation a little bit and more looking at WSL. As a journalist and someone who works within the WSL, it feels really exciting, this transfer window. Like, for the first time, we've got like rumours and reports and people like really getting into it. It wasn't like that only a couple of years back. As a player, what's it like seeing all those kind of media reports and transfer news I mean, obviously, as we speak, Beth England's just gone to Spurs for like a record transfer. That must feel quite exciting to be part of, a window where things are happening bigger than they ever have done before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as a player and as a young girl, you dream of being involved in that environment and that setup. And when I was younger, that wasn't the thing. There wasn't women's professional footballer. So to now be involved in that and to see it come across, on Sky Sports at the bottom, because I used to watch Sky Sports as a kid, and you'd see all the major transfers coming across the bottom of the screen for all the men's teams, and to see that now for the women's teams is fantastic. Like, when people sign contract extensions, or when people, like you say, big moves like Beth England, that would be all over Sky Sports right now. So I think it's a really exciting time to be a part of it, and I think the bigger the game gets, the more that's going to happen. It comes with pressures equally, but that's what we play for.
Absolutely. I think if you rewind back 10 years ago, a player signing a contract would have been big news, let alone will they or won't they renew new contracts and stuff like that. And it's great on my side of the fence. I've been fully enjoying it, but always interesting to see the player's perspective. One change that you have had at Leicester, obviously, is Willie Kirk's come in. He's been in there for a couple of weeks, a couple of months now, I think. Vastly experienced. We all know what he's about, obviously, especially us up here in Scotland. But how have you enjoyed him, and what has he brought to the squad?
Yeah, Willie's been fantastic since he's come in the door. I think I really like how he's gone about the change. He's obviously been involved in the club for a little bit beforehand in a role behind the scenes. So I think he got a good understanding of what he wanted to change and what he saw in the club, and the ambition he's got is fantastic. And I think that helps us all with knowing where the club's going, knowing the direction it's going in, and we think we're in safe hands. So yeah, I think he's brought a different style of play to us as well, which is really exciting. And I think we're starting to nail that now, and we're starting to see that come together, and just a belief in us as well, which is really good. So we're excited. We're glad to have him on board, and we'll see what the second half of the season brings.
Yeah, his record speaks for itself. I hate doing this, jumping from one thing to another, but I've just reminded myself of something. So I've been playing WSL on FIFA quite a bit recently. People will know I work with Glasgow City, and we have one or two players on FIFA like Hayley Lauder and stuff like that. But obviously WSL, all the brand and everything's on FIFA. I'm a little bit older than you, 11 years, give or take. But I think we all grew up with FIFA at different parts of our life. How weird is it seeing yourself on FIFA? But most importantly, how brilliant is that for visualization?
Again, I think it's another thing. As a kid, you would dream to be on that. I played it as a kid. Every year I'd get the new FIFA, or ask for the new FIFA for Christmas, or whenever it would be, and have competitions with my brother and my friends. And I think it's something that you just dream of. And so now to see, someone like Sam Kerr on the cover that we play against is fantastic. I think that's, internationally, girls can see her now on that cover and see it to be it, they say. So I think that's fantastic. And yeah, for me, I think playing as myself for the first time was weird and surreal. And I know I've had a lot of people from school or friends sending me pictures of them playing as me on FIFA. I'm like, Gemma, this is crazy. This is amazing. So I think it really hits home. It's quite a proud moment in a sense. And I think as the girls, we all just appreciate that we're being put on that kind of level playing field now, and that people can see us in the same way they can see the men's.
Did you have to do the face scans and all that kind of stuff? Did the EA Sports come in and do all the face scans? Because that would be, I don't know, should that be my dream? Maybe, yes, I would love it myself. But was that kind of a surreal experience? But most importantly, not was it just surreal? Was it like, is that a moment where they talk about the legacy of the Euros, and yes, there will be one, but was that one of the moments where you went, oh, hang on a minute, this is like actually happening?
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So they came in, I think it was last year. We obviously had to keep it all a secret, and they came in and did all the face scans. We had all the cameras on us, and they tell you to pull different expressions. They take pictures from different angles, and just to recreate your face, which is really, really cool. Very bright and a lot of cameras. I've never seen so many cameras this close to my face before. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a great day, and I think that got us all quite excited. But then because that was a year ago, not that we forgot about it, but it was kind of done. You kind of thought, where's that gone? What's that been used for? And then it all got announced. And thought, oh yeah, we're on this FIFA, and you start to see yourself and how they've, made the images of you online and stuff. And I think it looks really cool. So yeah, they did a great job, and it was exciting to kind of relive it when you then saw it properly.
I think my favorite thing about that was people arguing about who should have been on the cover. You had Arsenal fans saying, "Oh, Leah should be on there." Chelsea fans saying, "No, Sam Kerr's fine on there." Then you had Man United fans chipping in. But it's all about progression, isn't it? And it's all about visualization and stuff like that. But before I leave Leicester completely, we'll go all the way back to the start of your career as a squad. I must admit, because I've interviewed a few players before and stuff like that, and I followed a few of them online. Despite the results, you seem like a really close knit group, and obviously. I spoke with Shannon about 6 months after she'd moved to the club. Sophie's been there a couple of years, and they're both super lovely people. But when the results are tough, how do you manage to maintain that really high level of team spirit, which you really do seem to have?
I think it's important that having a togetherness as a team and actually getting on off the pitch it's really important and being successful. So I think we know that that's something that I think both Lydia and Willie put emphasis on and really try and push off the pitch as well because they realise how important it is. But us as players also understand that. I think this year especially, we're playing some really good football. We've competed with most of the teams that we've played, and we've felt hard done to in a lot of games. So I think the belief comes from that as well. I think we sit there and think we look at stats, we look at clips, we look at footage, and we think, well, we've competed. The little errors that we can fix. So we know we're not a million miles away. We know we're right there amongst it with everybody else. And I think that keeps us going. That's the motivation. And we've got a fresh slate now. Like I said, probably some new faces coming through the door at some point, and we'll be ready to then kick on and put that into action. But staying close off the pitch is definitely a big part of the success that's to come.
I imagine when we talk about professionals and how going from amateur to professional or part-time to professional, all the benefits you have of it tend to be spoken about nutrition and the fact that you can concentrate in football full time. But I suppose just thinking off the top of my head there, that's probably a benefit as well, that you can actually spend time with your teammates outside of football and get to know each other quite well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a massive part of it. We do spend a lot of time in this building together and a lot of time, outside, whether it's a coffee after training or whether we're traveling on the road or whatever it is. I do think we've got to know each other, especially in the last probably 6 months since the last pre-season we had. I think we got to know each other a lot better. In that time, we did an army camp. We went to a place called Wackatu up in the Lake District and did a lot of team building activities. So we kind of got to know each other's fears and vulnerabilities. We had to help each other through that. We spent a lot of time together then away around the campfire and doing that kind of stuff. So I think that's really important because getting to know someone off the pitch is equally as important as getting to know someone on it and understanding who needs what at the right times and how to work with an individual. So I think that's only going to benefit us in the long run, especially coming down to the business end of the season where it's going to be crucial.
Funny, as you were talking about that, I was trying to think which member of the Leicester team would probably work quite well, and I'm a celebrity there because now I've got that on my mind. Now that Jill's been there, I'm like, right, who's next? But I'll leave.
I would love to do I'm a Celeb. That'd be great, but I'm not ready yet.
I don't think I could do the bush tucker trials. The rest, I'll be all right. I'll cope with the rest of it. Holiday Australia isn't at the end of the day for free, so I'll take that.
That is true. That is true.
Always looking for the benefits, me. We'll rewind back all the way to before you even began your career now. Obviously, I think I'm pronouncing this right. You're born in Beverley, which is near York. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, not far away. About half an hour.
Yeah, thought it was quite close. What are your first memories of getting involved with football? And by getting involved, I mean not just playing it, like fall in love with it. We've all got that moment of going to our first game, our first favourite player and all that kind of stuff. What are your kind of recollections of that period of your life?
I mean, I think from when I could walk and kick a ball, I was doing that. I think, my dad and my brother both played a massive part in that. Brother loved football, dad loved football. They both played semi-professionally, so they were decent. I mean, they weren't they weren't the next big thing, but they were good footballers, and so they were always in the garden playing, and I always joined in with that, and kind of just threw myself in the deep end, played for a boys' team, and I think the one vivid memory I have, and I think my mum and dad share this, is I'd playing for a girls' team, first ever competitive tournament that I played in. And I just took a touch out of feet and put it in the top corner. And apparently everyone just stood back and was like, wow, that was impressive. And I remember doing it thinking, oh, that was quite good. Like, I want to do that again. And I remember coming home after that, I was like, Dad, do you remember that goal I scored? Do you know that goal I scored? And he was like, yeah, we all did, Jem. Like, took us all by surprise. Don't know what happened. And I think from there, that was my moment where I thought, I want that feeling again. I want to score goals. I want to be involved in a team. I want to be winning, because we won the tournament in the end. So I had a trophy, and I craved that feeling again. I want to be winning. I want to be in the team, and I want to win trophies. And I think that drove the start of me wanting to take football seriously. And I think it also helped playing with boys, because I think it just got you to the point of, although back then it was because there wasn't a girls' team when I first started, it actually helped me because it just made me think. I was on the park with the boys, getting stuck in. None of them cared that I was a girl, which was really nice. I had a really supportive team. So I think that was good fun. And in addition to that, I think a lot of the other parents on opposite teams did have an opinion on me playing. They were like, oh, there's a girl playing. Why's that girl playing? I think the proving wrong was a big one for me. I was thinking, right, well, because they don't want me to play, I'm definitely going to play. And I think I quite enjoyed that all the way through my career, of how can you prove people wrong and break boundaries. And I think, what the Lionesses have done this summer just proves that the sky's the limit.
I always get nervous asking this question, and you can bat it off if you want, because I can't edit this as always. But did you have a team you supported when you were growing up?
Yeah, and I'll get some stick for this one, but I'm an Everton fan.
That's fine.
Because my dad is a Scouse and my dad's from there. His family are all Blues. At times, you sit there and you think, could have been a Liverpool fan. Dad might have had a bit more glory in my time, but we're Everton fans through and through. We had season tickets when I was 4 years old, before I could play properly. We used to do 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, to watch Everton week in, week out till I could start playing. And then even now, we still have 2 season tickets, mum and dad do, to Everton. So yeah, it's a tough time for us right now. I've been an Everton fan, but we stick with them.
A little bit. I've got no issue with Everton. I'm a Sunderland fan, so I understand what it's like to have, should we say, adversity against you. But it'll come good. It'll come good. And you've got my boy Jordan Pickford there as well, so I'm quite happy with that.
I love Jordan Pickford. Takes a lot of stick, but I really do like him.
England's number one for the foreseeable
Always.
future, always. I know a few players personally, and obviously we've had Jess Park on the show as well, and they've all been through the York RTC. You're obviously another one that's done it as well. I think you're at the East Riding Centre of Excellence as well, which is something I know quite well. I used to work with the former Middlesbrough manager, who's now the manager at York City as well. It seems that it's a really good place for development. How important were both those, East Riding and York City RTC, for your development in the early years?
Yeah, they were really important. I think, going to East Riding was the first big step in my career, if you like. I mean, I was only 10, 11 years old, whatever age it was, that you were first allowed to trial for it. And I got in, and I remember being quite excited. But at that point, you still played for your club on a weekend, and you just trained with East Riding once a week. And then I think it was every couple of weeks you would play a fixture on a Friday night or something. I remember when that became more serious, and it was like, right, now you're going to play for East Riding every weekend, and there's no longer your Sunday league team, Saturday league team. I remember that being quite a big step, but actually really enjoying it, because it just took my football again to another level. I was then playing with all the best players in the region, and playing against the best players in other regions. And I think that was where I really started to want to kick on and take football seriously. I know at that point, England under 15s became a conversation, and I realised I could represent my country, and that was the next goal. And I think that's when it all became real. When I moved to York, I think I was under 12s or 14s, maybe under 14s. And one of the first things they did was say, we're going to send you to an England identification camp. Good luck. So I was like, okay, cool. So I thought it was great. Didn't think anything of it. Played free. I was a centre forward at this point. So, I mean, we're talking some time back. I remember coming off, I've scored a few goals. I think I've done all right, Dad, we'll see. And I'll never forget when it was Gordon Staniforth at the time was the Centre of Excellence director, and he came and tapped me on the shoulder. And I think he played the national anthem to me or something funny. And I remember laughing. And he said, "You're going on the next England camp." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "You've got picked. You're going with England." And I just remember that being the next big moment in my career, if you like. So I can do this. Like I'm now in the right place at the right time. And like you say, York was fantastic for that. They brought through some excellent players and really did help us develop us all into what we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the production reel is starting to get noticed more and more, especially for myself when I'm sort of doing these shows and stuff like that. And obviously I've got a little bit of interest because of where I've been in my own past, and you can really see that they're producing like quality players that are getting to move into not just professional football, but WSL as well. And obviously Jess now at Lioness as well and stuff like that. You've been at youth team level as well. But your career itself, obviously, you made your debut, I think, at just 16, 15, 16 WSL for Donny Bells against Chelsea of all teams. Like, bit of a break.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that day? Like, who were you up against? What players were on the opposite side? Like, how do you prepare yourself for your first ever professional WSL game?
Oh, I'll never forget. So at this point, I'm still a centre forward slash left winger, right? And I'm on the bench. It's the first game of the WSL season. I've literally just turned 16. I'm like, there's Jess Sigsworth, Millie Bright, Beth England, all playing, and I'm like, yeah, these are great. Like I'm excited to be a Sue Smith, another great footballer. And she was my idol, Sue. So I mean, to even be in a squad with her, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it got to half time, and someone's like, John's shouting you. I'm on the pitch just knocking the ball about. And I said, why? I think you're going on. I said, I'm going on. He was like, yeah, at left back. I said, at left back? Is he sure? Does he need me? So I'm like sprinting in, my heart's going. I'm looking up at mum and dad saying, I'm going on. They're laughing at me like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm going on. Anyway, you should have seen the face when I come out for the second half. It really did shock them. I didn't think they knew what was going on either. But our left back had gone down injured. And John had always said to me, like, I think you're a good centre forward. I think you're a good left winger, but I think you could be a great left back. And I was like, I'm not seeing it, John. I'm not seeing it. But anyway, so on I came. I'm marking Enia Luca in her prime. Oh. She's playing on right wing. And honestly, beginner's luck, got a beat. I had a great game. And I think it stuck. It stuck. I remember I was winning my tackles. I was just running at everything. I was just playing like a kid that had nothing to lose. And I think sometimes as a professional, you've got to remember that it was a good feeling, and it paid off. And I think that was the start of my professional career, if you like, although we weren't professional then. So yeah, there was a lot of memories from that day, but one of them was definitely pride and turning around and seeing mum and dad in the stands and just smiling like, I've done it. When I came off, I think was a big thing because I didn't make any major errors, and I did myself proud that day.
It's funny that it's like such a small world, football, because like I think my second or third guest on the show a couple of months back was Georgia Timms, and she made her debut against Donny Bells and was Morgan Sue Smith in midfield. She ended up becoming a centre forward from being like I think a defensive midfielder. So yeah, full circle. But I imagine in terms of the first game you play, especially if you're coming up against someone who's obviously well known in the game, and you think, bloody hell, here we go. I imagine that first tackle is the most important tackle you'll ever make in your career, probably.
Yeah, it was. It settled the nerves completely. I remember she was running at me, and I went to meet her for a 50-50 and won it. And from that moment on, I thought, right, I can do this, like relax into it. So yeah, I really enjoyed the rest of the game after that. And like I said, just played free without overthinking things, which is always the best way to be.
Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? I think you see it an awful lot, especially with the sort of younger players coming on. They just don't overthink it. They just do what they do, and it sometimes works out better. Obviously, you did play a few more games for Donny Bells, but then you moved on towards Durham, and I think in the 2014-15 season, which is where you began to play really regular football. I think everyone knows the reputation Durham have as a club is a good one. They've been fighting for promotion from the championship for years. I think everyone sees it as a place where players can really develop, but what did the exposure to regular first-team football at a very young age do for you at that point at Durham?
Yeah, I think, it was really important for me to get game time. I knew that shortly after that, I was going to be going to university, whether that be in America, which I'm sure we'll touch on, or at the time I was going to move to a bigger city to go to university anyway. So I was going to leave Hull. So I knew that my team would change again. And I think at that point, I just realised I was 16, 17 and I needed regular football. I was playing obviously extra minutes for Doncaster reserves at the time when I wasn't getting minutes on the weekend, and then playing some for the first team. And I just needed something to bridge that gap to get me into first team football, but it might not have been in the WSL at the time. So I think it was just good for my confidence to go and play with that team. There was quite a young team there anyway. Lee, the manager, had kind of built it himself and really got a good tight knit squad together, which some of them still play there now that played with me then. So I think that stands for everything that they're about, is a tight knit squad that really do fight for each other. And I would just love being a part of it. I got on really well with Beth Heppel, who's still there, and we roomed together on away trips, and I just enjoyed being a part of something again where I felt I was playing and I was an important member of the squad, and I think that was what I needed at that age. So yeah, it was really good for my development, and I really enjoyed my time there, and it toughened me up again because Championship football again was not quite as technical as WSL, but definitely just as physical. So that was a good learning curve for me.
Especially at Durham. Very physical side, and I love it. That's why I like Durham.
Yeah.
Touched on Beth Heppel there. I think we talked about it a few episodes ago when we had Dee Bradley on, and I think Beth Heppel is probably one of the most underrated set piece takers in the entire league. I don't think people click to how good she is from set pieces, and obviously she's been there for years alongside a host of other players. And as you said, Durham they've stood the test of time in terms of that team spirit that they have. But as you said, you did move on to university, and I think a few players have made the switch before. There's loads of players that have done it, but it's still a very brave one regardless of that. You're still young in your teens. You move your entire life, not just your career, to America to go on a scholarship originally in Alabama. Now, I've known a few girls who have done it, especially girls I worked with when I was at Middlesbrough myself, and I know the benefits it can give you, but what were the reasons that you personally decided America was the better option rather than maybe staying here at that point?
I think kind of what I just touched on, in terms of I was sat in that place between regular first team football and WSL, but also feeling like I wasn't getting the same type of challenge playing reserves football at the time. And so I thought, what do I do to bridge the gap? And I always wanted a degree. I always said I want a degree because I want to know that no matter what happens, I've got something that I can fall back on. And so I debated going to Liverpool, John Moores, and looking at Everton or Liverpool. I went to train with Notts County at the time and debated going to Nottingham Trent University. And they were kind of my options. And then a guy called Graham Winkworth, who became my coach for the 4 years out there, gave me a call. He said, "Look, I've seen you playing for England under 17s at left back. I like what I see. I'd love to fly you out and show you what you could have if you wanted to come to America." And at this point, I don't think a lot of people did it the year before me. So I didn't really know loads of people that had done it. I think the year after me, loads of people went, like Alessia Russo and all that age group. A lot of them went to the States. But I think before that, there wasn't as many. So I didn't have as many people I could talk to about it and ask them their experience. But luckily, I did know a couple of the girls that were out there at the time that were English. The coach was English, the assistant coach was English, and the other assistant was Scottish. So they had quite a friendly home feel to it. So I said, okay, I'll go out there. It's a full scholarship. You won't come out of uni with your degree, no debt. And I thought, well, that's cool. Like, that's quite a nice thing. But me being me, mum and dad laughed because I hated the heat. I never was good in the heat. On holiday, I was in the shade under a towel playing my Nintendo DS as a kid. Like I was not out of in the sun. And I got very homesick. Like I'd go away with England for 10 days for the Euros or whatever, and by the end of it I'd be crying, wanting to come home because I was just homesick. Like I loved it. I was fine when I was on the pitch. It's just the downtime. I'd be like, oh, God, I need to get home. Like I'm missing at home. I'm missing out. But I don't know what I thought I was missing out on. There was nothing going on. Anyway, so that was just my own mindset, and he flew me out, and I saw the facilities. I saw what they had. I saw everything they were about, and I thought, wow, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. Like this is really impressive. But then I was like, still apprehensive. And so I think it came when my parents said to me, look, try it, because you don't want to live with regrets. And quite a few of the girls at the time that were at Doncaster said, I was offered that and I regret never going. They said, why don't you try it? And if you don't like it, you can fly home after 2 weeks. Like, we'll promise we'll get you home if you don't like it. You go and try it. So I did. And I think the first 2 weeks were tough. There was quite a few tears shed in the first 2 weeks because I'd gone over early to try and acclimatise to the heat, get used to the environment. So we weren't in full-time training. So I had quite a lot of downtime. But the second we stepped into pre-season, I loved every minute. And I used to go back early, I used to spend my summers there. And obviously I spent the whole 4 years in America. Obviously I moved, but it was just a fantastic opportunity. And it was definitely what I needed, I think, to grow up as a person and to mature as a footballer and to physically push myself further than I ever knew I could as well.
Interesting you mentioned about like your progression as a person, not just a player there. I think anyone in like life at the age of like 19, 20, 21, 22, there's such difference and change and maturity in what you kind of experience, because you're going from that being like, you feel like a child with like the world at your feet to suddenly you're an adult a few years later. When you're changing where you're living and sort of being on your own and being independent, you notice a lot of things about yourself. What were the kind of main things you realized about yourself as a person and as a player after you came back from the States? Like when you sat down and assessed your time there, what were the key things that you picked up from that time?
I felt like physically I came back in a much better condition in terms of on the pitch. Out there they push you to your limits beyond what you think you can achieve, and I think that for me was massive. And I had people that I had to, chase, that I had to look up to in terms of physicality. How can I get to that? How can I push that? And I'd mirror them in the gym. I'd mirror them on the training pitch with the running. I think technically it helped me mature as a player in terms of technically out there I was fine. I was a technically gifted player in the team, but I think because of the speed of the game and the pressure and how quick it comes at you, it made me have to react to things a little bit quicker than I might have in youth football in England. So I think that was another positive. And I think just the ambition and the team togetherness out there was massive. I've never played in a team quite like the one I played in America in terms of how everybody got along, the drive and ambition and the winning mentality and everything that everyone had out there. The mentality of the Americans, as we know, is amazing. I think that's actually right across the board from youth level to senior level. That is just how they train for sport, how they are brought up, and their dedication and work ethic towards what they do. So I think I learned a lot in that sense as well. And just as a person, I think when I came back, I was a lot more mature. I think I could stand on my own 2 feet in any situation. Because out there, I had to buy a car, I had to do my driving license in a different country, I had to sort my tax return out. Like there was a million and one things that you just don't think about that I then had to figure out, how do I do that? So now coming back to England, I'm like, well, I can do that. I take everything in my stride a bit more now rather than panicking and being like, Mum, Dad, what do I do about that? Like the natural response of a kid. I'm now like, right, I can figure that out. I mean, don't get me wrong, they still get phone calls, but but I could deal with things a lot better myself. So I think just in that sense, yeah, I think I came back a more mature version of myself, and that was quite nice and refreshing. I think a lot of people noticed that in me. They said, like, you've come back and you just seem calmer, level-headed, ready to attack whatever's put in front of you, and that was nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to hear as well from my side, you explaining it. When you came back, obviously you moved to Liverpool, which is a revelation now that I know you're an Everton fan, but I think through the time you were in America, from where you left England in the WSL or the Championship and then came back to the WSL, things had changed so much, like, and they've changed tenfold since then on top of that as well. What was it like coming back when you kind of came back to WSL and you saw what those main differences were from the leagues that you'd left to the league that you joined? What were the big differences for you?
I think just the standard of football was obviously higher. I think the physicality was higher. I think as a whole, the game had just progressed both on and off the pitch. There was still obviously work to be done with off the pitch issues, and like team facilities and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's come a long way again, like you said, from when I signed for Liverpool. But I think the main thing was just the quality, because everything had gone full-time professional about 2 years previous to that. And I think you could tell how players moved the ball, how players even just interacted with each other, because you're spending every day together rather than part-time football. It just had a really nice but professional feel to it. And it was exactly what I wanted to come back to, because like I said, the environment in America really is replicated as we're a professional football team, even though it's at college. You train 6 days a week, you get 1 day off. You train every morning, 8 to 12, and then you go to your lectures in the afternoon. And that was how it was structured. So it set me up in really good stead to come back and just fall straight back into that environment and be able to have a smooth transition into it. And I think that really helped me, especially the physicality stuff that I'd learnt there as well, put me in good stead to be able to train the load and the intensity that we did at Liverpool at the time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you came back on, I'm sure it was your debut, you scored an absolute screamer, didn't you, for Liverpool on your debut?
I did, yeah. It was in the FA Cup.
That's right.
It was against MK Dons. Yeah, I scored a scored a great goal, and I just remember thinking, "Wow, that was what dreams are made of," type thing. I remember looking up to the stand, seeing my family, and thinking that's cool. Like my friends were there as well. Everyone had come to watch because obviously I found out I was starting the day before, and it was a really a proud moment and another milestone in my career.
Talking about the time that you had at Liverpool, obviously the second season was difficult in many ways. Obviously, relegation happened, but the most interesting thing about, well, not maybe not interesting for you, but for me, I suppose, was the fact that you got relegated due to a pandemic. So, how did it feel, A, to have your football stopped completely, the game's not being played unexpectedly, and then ultimately the only bit of news you get from the league is that you've been relegated due to PPG? That must have been the weirdest time. How did that period feel to be relegated on basically the fact that a pandemic had killed the entirety of the football leagues?
Yeah, it was crazy. Obviously, like the first time we got sent home, they said, "Look, you're home for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday." Then it was, "Okay, you're not coming back in Monday. You're going to be off for a week." And then obviously the severity increased, and we were all sat at home thinking, "What's going on?" So we're still completing our running programs. We're still completing all our gym stuff. Everyone's getting extra equipment sent out to the house. I mean, Liverpool were fantastic in keeping us all in shape. I know they dropped watt bikes off around at people's houses that needed it. They sent people around to literally like defumigate all our family homes to make sure that all the germs were killed off the surfaces and this, that, and the other, and to keep us all healthy and ticking over. And they were brilliant with that. And I think we were all of the mind that the league was going to carry on. It was just a matter of when. So we were all still training by ourselves every day, reporting. We had team Zooms, team yoga, team quizzes, coffee mornings to keep us all interacted. It was like we were still there in a sense. We probably did the same amount of hours just from our own homes. So like it didn't feel too bad, and it actually made the transition to being at home quite easy because we never were just sat doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think then, yeah, when the realization came, you've been relegated. I remember the phone call, and Vicky Jepson's manager at the time, and she said, "Look, we've been relegated." And we were like, "What?" Well, I think there was only a point or two in it. Like, and we had half a season of football to play, and we hadn't played Birmingham. The game against Birmingham had been cancelled a few weeks prior, and we hadn't played them yet. And I think they were the team above us. And I think if we'd have won that, we'd have jumped them. So we're like, how can that be? So I think the confusion, the upset, we'd also been running our socks off for weeks and weeks on end to be ready to play again. And it was really hard. It became a strange period of, well, what now? Obviously, like contracts were up. There was a lot to be discussed, and it took a long time to come to that decision. So yeah, it was very strange, definitely devastating and upsetting because you think, well, we didn't deserve that. I don't know what happened. And on a personal note, I'd had a knee up and I'd only been back for one game. I'd played 90 minutes all season, I think. Maybe one before my injury and then one after. So I'd only returned for 90 minutes and that was it. I was like, oh, done. So it was a very strange and surreal time and one that, yeah, it definitely wasn't a career highlight, let's say that.
It was a weird one, wasn't it? Because I remember coming off the back of the World Cup in 2019, that really felt like a moment where everything was going to go. And obviously, we can look back now and say, well, the Euros kind of saved any lack of progression, shall we say? But at the time, it felt like the growth of women's football had been stopped in its tracks because even when the games came back, you couldn't play games. Very, very weird time. Maybe a controversial question to ask, but it was also a relegation in the same time that Liverpool won the league. And I remember at the time, there's a lot of talk about the women's team by the club felt a bit of an afterthought, and a lot of the fans were unhappy with the way things were. As a player, how did that period for you feel at that time? Was that a feeling you had, or was it very different from a player's perspective?
It was a strange one. I think the club did back us. The club weren't not backing us. We went on the pre-season tour with the men that year. And yeah, okay, we didn't have quite the same tour as the men did, but it was definitely steps in the right direction. I don't think they were doing anything less than other clubs were doing. I think they were trying to progress it in the right direction, but I think as a whole, women's football still had a long way to progress. So we still had barriers to break, and there were still things that I think as a club they could have helped, but I think that was across the board. I don't think there was one team in WSL at that point that had it all. So yeah, it was a strange one. I don't think that they were unhelpful. I think it was just tough. And like we say, we'd have played the rest of that season. I really don't think we'd have been relegated. I think the team we had was more than capable of staying up, and we'd had a couple of near misses, we had a couple of draws, we had points on the board. Um, we weren't in a bad place. It was just bad timing. A few games been cancelled beforehand, which were a couple of our winnable games, and then the pandemic happened, and no one could have planned for that or written that. So, no, I don't think anyone was to blame. I think it was just one of those things that hopefully we never have to experience again.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think you look at the Liverpool now. There's definitely, if anyone did feel like there was anything that wasn't right at that point, you can definitely see they're definitely making moves towards fixing that now. And obviously, back in the WSL, of course. Now, obviously, you moved to Bristol City. Now, I'm looking through the Bristol City side here, right? And I kind of forget how good and young and talented that team was. Abby Harrison, Sophie Bagley, Molly Pike, who obviously you're with now, Charlie Wellens, who had a fantastic season at with Celtic, Carla Humphrey, Ebony Salmon. A great squad, a very young squad. But could you tell how far the likes of, say, Ebony Salmon were going to go when you're part of that squad?
Yeah, I think when we entered and started that season, we knew it was going to be tough in a sense of Bristol's budget was nowhere near the rest of the WSLs, and
Yeah,
that was no secret to anyone. I don't think. I think Bristol were quite open with that as well, just with where they were at the time. And I think I like the honesty of the club. They were honest about it. They didn't try and sell you dreams or tell you it was going to be the best year of your life or whatever. It was quite to the point. Look, you'll get regular minutes. I'd come back obviously from a knee injury, and it was you'll get regular minutes. You'll play WSL football. We've got a young team, like you say. We've got a young, talented team. We're going to try and build the togetherness. We're going to work with what we've got. We're going to develop players, and we're going to hope that we do all right. And it was exactly that. I think as a year, considering everything that happened and what we had to endure and things, like I say, we didn't have the glamorous lifestyle of it. We had a really together team. We fought for everything. We took points off decent teams. We actually battled it right till the last game of the season, which I think some thought we weren't going to do at Christmas. And we had a good team that really did develop. And like you say, when you've got someone like Ebbs playing up top for you, you're guaranteed probably a goal a game. Or you've got that chance to try and get in behind, and you've always got an outlet of someone to get on the end of the ball and score. And so I think that was massive in our success as well. So yeah, it wasn't sold as a dream. It was sold exactly what it was going to be. And you know what? I actually loved every minute of my time at Bristol City. I thought everybody involved with the club was fantastic. And we had an agreement, depending what happens will depend on my future at the club. And, thankfully they were great with that. They were really understanding, and as a team and as management, they did put the priority on the players and made sure that it looked after everyone at the end of that season.
I think if you look through the players I mentioned there as well, most of them are WSL. Abby Harrison should be WSL. Not that I'm trying to sell her on to anyone. Sorry, Bristol City, but not too far away. Doing very well for Scotland. And Ebony Salmon, fingers crossed, will be there or thereabouts for a World Cup squad. So absolutely, that I agree with what you said. You touched on the taking to the last day. Obviously, no disrespect to Tanya whatsoever. The club looked after her and stuff like that. She went away at maternity, but Matt Beard came in and almost completed the Great Escape with some really good results. Obviously, really well respected manager. Obviously, still back in the WSL now. But how good was for you? How good was he for you in those sort of 6 months? Because you really did almost pull off, shall we say, the Great Escape.
Yeah, Matt was absolutely fantastic. He's such a lovely person as well as a fantastic football manager, and he just brought a new kind of outlook on things, a new perspective on things. Like you said, Tanya also a brilliant manager. Really like Tanya as well. Bristol were very fortunate to have two great managers step in the building that year. So yeah, I think he was just great again in giving a different style on things. Every manager does things differently, and a different outlook on what we can achieve, and just told us we've got to believe in ourselves. We've got to make sure that we go into every game knowing we can take something. We've got to fight, and no matter who we play, we're going to play like we're going to win it, and we're not going to change for anyone. And obviously that worked sometimes and it didn't others, and that's football. But I think it really instilled a belief in us, and he really drilled in what you were good at and made you feel good about what you were doing, and made you believe that kind of the sky was the limit. And yeah, that's something I think he does across the board with his teams and why he's successful. So it really did kind of helped turn it around. I think a fresh outlook is always massive. It keeps everyone on their toes again. And it was just what we needed at the time. And it was a shame that we couldn't pull that off.
Jemma, we've gone well over the half an hour I promised you. I hope you don't mind that, first and foremost. But
Okay.
The most two important questions, which I think everyone who listens to this, all 5 of them that listen, really enjoy this question, and I do as well. So standard questions are the same as always. Just before I give you the final one, the penultimate question, who is the most difficult opponent you've ever come up against in your career, and why?
Fran Kirby. And because you just never know what she's going to do next. Her movement is quick, it's last minute, a touch on the ball and everything in between. And I think you add Sam Kerr into that mix since she's come to the league. The two of them as a duo are fantastic and very, very frightening when you get them on form. But yeah, got to be Fran Kirby, fantastic footballer.
Can't disagree with that. And then final question is your ultimate 5-a-side team, but the rules are as follows. You can include yourself if you want. I'll give you a hint. Every single person I've interviewed has included themselves, which says an awful lot about the ego of a footballer. And second of all, it can't include a goalkeeper. It doesn't matter if you have a goalkeeper or not. You can play rush goalkeeper. You can add a goalkeeper in. You don't have to have a formation. You can have 5 attackers. You can have 5 defenders. Do what you want. It's your team.
Okay, this is good. I'm going to put myself in it then. We'll start with that. Ego of a footballer.
You have to do it. You have to do it.
With that. I think we're going to have to put Leah Williamson in there.
Mm-hmm.
To lead us out. Kira Walsh, got to be. Fantastic footballer.
Yeah.
Chloe Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm torn on the last one.
Got 2 more. Hang on. No, yourself.
I've got 2 more.
No, hang on. Chloe, yourself. No, you got 1 more. You're right. I can't count. This is why I do podcasts and not mathematics.
Yeah. Trying to go attacking or defensive. I'm going to go attacking. I'm going to say Beth England.
Good shout. And on topic. On topic for today's date. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with the big move.
Yeah. Jemma, really, really enjoyed the chat. Genuinely mean that. I hope you did as well. Yeah,
really did. Thank you very much for having me.
Good. Not a problem. My absolute pleasure. And good luck for the rest of the season, as always.
Thank you very much.